Hello, everyone. Welcome to the core conversation. Today, we're going to be talking about self-advocacy. I'm Rebecca Roberts, and Adam Ayers is assisting me today. He'll be letting people into the meeting and helping us somewhat with the chat. The core conversations are brought to you by April, but in partnership with ILNet, the National Training and Technical Assistance Center for Independent Living. Before we get started, I want to remind you that at the end of this session, there will be a survey available, and I really hope that all of you will take advantage. A link will be provided, and we would really like to get your feedback on these conversations. Before we get started, and I will not have the PowerPoint on the entire time, but just to introduce the topic of what we are talking about. Today, we're talking about self-advocacy. There will be another meeting later in the month to talk about systems advocacy. And just some questions to kind of get you started and thinking about what we might talk about today, although I don't want to limit it to this, are what are some of the common issues that consumers run into that really require or benefit them to have self-advocacy skills? And what methods or models of self-advocacy are we using in our centers or have found to be most helpful to our consumers? And also, how can CILS assist or support consumers, and what resources are available that you have used with your consumers before? So please be glad to share with us. If you raise your hand, I will call on you. If I'm missing you, Adam's going to bring that to my attention. If you post things in chat, if it's something that might be of interest to the group, I will go ahead and share it. If you raise your hand, I will try to call on you in the order in which you're raising your hands. And also, after this meeting, there will be a recording and a transcript of this meeting that will be available to you. So I think that we're ready to go. Who would like to get us started today discussing self-advocacy, what that means to you, and how you help your consumers with this? All right, who do we have here? Would anyone like to get started? I find
ourselves or what?
I'm sorry, who was that?
This is Josefina from Volar Center for Independent Living.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Would you like to share? Let's start off with talking about the kinds of issues that a lot of our consumers need to self-advocate with. Many of the consumers that I've worked with in the past are involved with a lot of services and bureaucracies that maybe don't always recognize their unique needs. Has anyone else had that experience?
No.
Would anyone like to share some of the uses for self-advocacy that they've seen?
It looks like we got a hand raised. Oh, I think I just lost them.
If you've raised your hand, why don't you go ahead and start speaking?
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right, my name is Leland. I'm with Access to Independence in Honolulu, Hawaii. I had a consumer, or still have her actually, but she really did a good job in self-advocating for herself in the Department of Education. There were a lot of reasonable accommodations that she wanted to make sure that she asked for when it came to her employment search. And while DOE wasn't able to meet all of those reasonable accommodations, she felt a lot more confident in advocating for herself moving forward, knowing what to ask for and what parts of her reasonable accommodations could she live with, or what were more make or breaks for her. But just kind of sitting with her and working with her on figuring out what to say and really writing everything down. really just made her a bit more confident and in self-advocating for herself. So she's been able to do that a lot moving forward, and I was happy to be a part of it. So that's one instance that I have in mind.
That's excellent. That's a really, really good point that self-advocacy can make us more confident in making sure that our needs are met. Would anyone else like to add to that?
Hello?
Hello.
Hello, who's speaking? Has anyone had that same experience? What has been the effect past being able to get their needs met that self-advocacy has had with your consumers? We don't have a very talkative group today. One of the things that I noticed when I was working with consumers directly is that idea that she just brought up of having a script for what to say. And also, I think some of my consumers were surprised at how well, when they were prepared and they had a script and they knew precisely what they needed to ask for, that people became much more accommodating and were more open maybe to their needs than they thought. But I know a lot of our consumers don't have that experience. So if somebody could give some examples of maybe some of the harder situations in which consumers have had to advocate for themselves.
Beck Levin has her hand up. Would you like to add to this conversation?
This is Beck. Something that I don't know if it speaks to the question or not, but it does. It's a pressure point for us specifically is self-advocacy when it comes to Social Security and those services, because even if someone is just the best self-advocate in the world, knows all the lingo, knows who to call, knows what to say, they could still get a denial. They could still get an overpayment notice. They can still encounter issues with Social Security or with a system that won't bend for self-advocacy, I guess. And that's kind of where I'm running up against issues, is motivating those consumers to want to continue when things are really difficult, for example, with Social Security. Over.
That's true. Motivation when things are difficult is often tough. Does anyone have any similar experiences or how they've handled that with consumers? Adam, I believe you're pinned, so you're the only person I'm seeing.
People aren't showing up in your top row.
That's right. Let me.
I'm not pinned, in fact.
This is Beck. Rebecca, if you go to the top right, there should be a view button and you can
Yes,
change it to gallery.
I am in the gallery view.
Oh, that's odd.
That's
Over.
interesting.
Yeah. My gallery shows, looks like about 20 boxes.
All right. We do have someone with their hand raised. I don't see a name on there, but if you'd like to go ahead and share, that would be great.
Hi, my name is Doris Ray, and I work at Independence Center of Northern Virginia. But I was thinking about two incidences that happened when I was working at the District of Columbia Center for Independent Living, and that I know that's not a rural center, but we had a peer counseling support group, and they saw some violations of the ADA at a big, huge Safeway nearby our office in Northeast. And they were talking about it, and we had a very skillful peer counseling coordinator, and she facilitated the group, and they started talking about their own common experiences, either with that grocery store or others, and they decided to support the individual and go over to the store, write a letter to the store, and I believe they even did a demonstration over there. And
Do you mind
decided to-
speaking up a little bit? I think people are having trouble hearing you. Just a
Oh,
little.
I'm sorry. So what I was saying is we had a peer support group, and we had a very skillful peer facilitator of the group, and they talked about an individual's problem with the grocery store, and then the group got around to deciding to assist the individual because there were violations of the ADA, and they had experienced things themselves, and therefore it turned into a systems advocacy event where they wrote a letter to the store, big corporations, so they went up the ladder, and they even had a demonstration over there, and the thing was resolved.
Wow, that's a great example. Did you say that it was resolved?
Yes, yes.
That's great. I see Maria
it
has,
was, I mean, the issue was the gates that are around many grocery stores, or most, I guess, to keep in the carts. Keep people from stealing the carts.
thank you. I see Maria has her hand also raised. Maria?
Hey, this is Maria, and can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, good. So just to follow up with what Beth was saying, we also come across consumers who get frustrated with long processes for SSI and SSDI, and also Medicaid and Medicaid waivers. That can also be a sticky point because sometimes we have to send them to apply for Medicaid, and then they have to talk to the single entry point to find out what waivers they get, and then they come back to us for certain services. So helping people track where they need to go and who they need to talk to and who they need to follow up with can be pretty, it can be confusing and frustrating. And so we try to do like what Becca was saying, creating lists, helping people find the questions they need, following the script, but then also asking those follow-up / open-ended questions, like what's our next step? What's our next course of action? Or asking the person, what are you gonna do next? How can we help you? What's your next step? What do you want to see happen next? And so sometimes that helps, sometimes people are so frustrated because it's frustrating.
Thank you, Maria. That's good advice too.
The chat's got a few in there that I wanted to read. Teresa Haley said, upon my initial meetings with consumers, I listen as they tell me about their needs, and when they bring out certain points, I encourage them in advocating for themselves, which is great, giving them the tools and scripts and help to kind of go over that as they become or engage in that self-advocacy. And Ashley also says that when a consumer tells me they want to learn how to self-advocate more for themselves, I often offer to role play with them, providing scenario examples, recommending they do some research on the topic they want to address so they have more background info to better explain their needs or wants. And I think that's great. Again, role playing is really beneficial to act it out and get your words in order so you can really communicate well what your needs are.
All right, thank you. If you came to this meeting with questions or resources that might be worth sharing to other people, we would be glad to hear those.
Herschel in the chat says, as for system advocacy, sometimes I get frustrated with the legal entities not truly wanting to fight for my rights. They want to offer mediation or nothing, and the outcome, nothing really changes. And that can definitely be very frustrating.
Does anyone have any suggestions in those cases when the outcomes are just referring to remediation? One of the speakers earlier brought up this advocacy group that went to the grocery store to take care of that. How many of us have advocacy groups or have been involved in advocacy groups or training in a group situation? Does anyone have a good example of that? Or questions about?
I see, Elaine, you came off mute. Did you have something that you wanted to comment? Elaine Davis?
No, that was Ashley. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. Jeff Williams in the chat says, also consulting an expert. It's okay if we are not experts on everything. And I think that's definitely a valid point. You know, it's okay to say that you don't know, but you're going to reach out and try to find those answers from individuals that may know or have those specific directions to help out your consumer that you're helping become a better self-advocate. I see Don Posh, you have your hand up.
Yeah, well, in these rural situations, I'm in rural Wisconsin in the northern part, and to get a group together is really difficult because of distances. But I just had a discussion with the ADRC. We have a Aging and Disability Resource Center in Sawyer County. And I'm going to go out with the elderly benefits specialist to all the senior centers, and we're going to start teaching advocacy that way so that we could, it seems like, it's almost like, oh, well, I voted and I'm done, you know, or my person lost. Well, if your person lost, pick on the person that's there now. You know, it's like, there seems to be a little bit of a fear like these people are special. They're just people. Our representatives are just people. They put their pants on one leg at a time. And sometimes you get a surprising response. Like I had a situation where I am a caregiver as well. I'm an independent living specialist and I am a caregiver. My dad lives with me. And I took him to the community clinic and I'm wearing my caregiver hat and he's incontinent, so I take him to the bathroom right away. And I had to open the door for him because he's using a cane and the door was really heavy. And I had to actually go in the bathroom with him because there'd be no way he could get out of there. And I wasn't thinking about it till I sat down in the waiting room and I connected with the manager of the clinic. And I told them about it. 4 weeks later, they had an automatic opener on that door. I was going to go in with my AT, my little measuring tool. I offered to meet with their maintenance people. They said, no, we got it done. So sometimes there are surprises. It's asking for it in the first place. Maybe calm down and not be adversarial when you approach somebody, because maybe they just don't know. They just, or wasn't even a thought because they're not experiencing that situation. So they're not thinking about it and nobody's complained about it before. So how we approach our advocacy is really going to make a difference in what kind of successes we get.
Yeah, very good point, Don. Thank you. Pam Davies, I see your hand is up as well.
Yes. We have a consumer advocacy team. We call it the CAT team. And for years, we have been working on transportation as everybody has problems. in the beginning, when we first came here, the consumers would complain they're having trouble scheduling rides and people are rude or they mess it up. So we started scheduling the rides for them. Then the same thing happened with us scheduling the rides. And we advocated, we need another provider. This provider is, incompetent. We started working with the mobility person for the county, and it's taken a while. It's been slow, but now we have other providers that are doing a much better job. And we taught them how to self-advocate. They would come to the meetings. We'd have a commissioner there, or we'd have the mobility manager there. So it finally did get through from self-advocacy to system change.
That's interesting to point out that relationship, and good work there.
Thank you.
We also have another phone speaker with their hand up. Go ahead.
Hi, is that me? I'm not sure.
Oh,
Yeah, that's you.
Yeah. So, what I wanted to mention it was that when I'm thinking about an advocacy issue, and let's just say it starts with an individual's advocacy issue, then I know that it's involving perhaps a violation of the ADA or something that's at a system level policy. Then in working with consumers, the first thing I tell people is find out what your rights are. And since we have 10 regional ADA centers, information centers that are excellent resources and that are dedicated and paid for with federal money to help us figure out what is a legal issue, what is what is an advocacy issue that might be covered by the ADA, then I go there even if I'm sure even that it is a violation. I go there to find out and to get any materials they have, so I myself can be confident, and so that I can share that, or I suggest to consumers they do the same, so that they can build up confidence in information is power. And similarly, there are any number of national organizations, and of course Nickel and April, that we should not be afraid, I think, to go to, and then at the local level, no matter what, we're all voters if we're adults, and we're all paying our tax money one way or the other into our counties and cities, and the way communities work, going to an elected official or going to the head of an agency or an appropriate manager or whatever, and working the way up through the system is something that we can do even without having to pay an attorney. But there are fairly also things like legal services and legal aid that we can go to depending on the issue. So the question was about resources, and I think as Centers for Independent Living, those are some of the basic things that we should know and refresh those resources to be able to share with consumers and have them have the experience of actually going to making an appointment with a county board supervisor or whatever. So those are my thoughts on resources to begin with. And to serve, and actually to serve in the community and engage on boards and commissions. Some people I have heard, certainly throughout my life, feel that it's just sitting at a meeting and doing nothing, But one, it's a place to learn, particularly about your community, and two, if it's a disability commission, we should engaging them to work with us and our consumers, and we should be encouraging consumers to dedicate that time. But believe you me, I know how much time it takes to get informed by being involved in boards and commissions. And then, of course, there is the issue of transportation, because I don't drive because of my disability,
Yes.
but the virtual environment has made it easier, I think, to be involved in community activities.
Yeah. Thank you. I noticed in the chat, we have a comment from Terry that says, I'm concerned about SILs being permitted to have an advocacy program when SILs are not allowed to advocate. And also I should say, Leland posted a resource related to that. And all of the resources will be shared with you following up on the meeting in just a while. But would anyone like to address that concern?
Well, I want to say something. Yes, we might not be legal advocates, because I'm assuming that they think that we do legal advocacy. We don't. What in our center, what we do, we teach them how to self-advocate for them. Okay. If it's something out of our reach, then we seek advocates out in the community that can help you with legal action on whatever the need is: housing, transportation, whatever it is, Social Security, whatever it is. I mean, we just advocate and teach them in how to self-advocate for themselves. Because many people think that we do legal advocacy, but we don't. We just give them the tools, That's all I have to say.
Thank you. That's really important when we talk about self-advocacy. I think it's really important that people have made the connection between self-advocacy and how that works up to systems advocacy. And when we do our talk in a couple of weeks, we'll have a conversation about systems advocacy. And we're going to try to have some folks there with some experience in that. But I think one of a key idea as we move on to systems advocacy is that I don't know that SILs aren't allowed to advocate. SILs aren't allowed to lobby. Part of advocating is providing information, and we certainly can provide our consumers with the resources they need to self-advocate or take part in systems advocacy. So that'll be an interesting question about the rules for SILs on system advocacy. Would anybody like to add to this, or can add resources, or somebody, Terry, who asked the question, said, I teach advocacy as education, and we are allowed to educate all day long. And I think that's an excellent point, Terry. Who'd like to add in on this conversation?
Dan Posh has his hand up, so let's go to Don. I'm sorry, Don.
Thank you, Don.
I noticed that a lot of meetings, I watch people with two phones, meaning one's personal. I have a home. I'm a remote worker, so I work from home. I just pick up my home phone and I'm a citizen. That means that if there's legislation I'm concerned about, I could call from my home phone. And I don't think that my SIL cares that I'm doing that. So that just goes under just miscellaneous as far as advocating for my time. And another thing to think about too is that I used to be acquainted with my state senator. And at one time we were talking and she said, all it takes is about 5 calls and we start paying attention. So I looked at her district, which she's not there anymore, and I've been bringing this up. There's 144,436 people, and if the voting age people, can we get 5 calls out of that? So that's where the teaching comes in. 5 minutes, get on the phone and say, this is important to me. They start being concerned about their jobs when their phone starts ringing. Sometimes their phone doesn't ring from constituents for weeks. And maybe that's something that we got to make happen. At least I'm trying to at my end of the state.
Thank you, Don. That's a really good point. So we've had a couple of comments about teaching advocacy, self-advocacy to consumers. Does anyone want to share any programs or resources or just general discussion about how that works in your SIL or your area? A lot of people out there teaching advocacy skills, some
We got a
informal
hand up.
programs.
It's another cell phone number. If you want to go
Oh,
ahead.
okay. The speaker on the phone, the number I believe is 7673. Oh, we might have to, you are muted.
I
There we go.
wasn't, I was muted. I didn't realize it.
It's all
I'm
good.
sorry. Okay. So, what I did want to address is the statement that by policy we cannot advocate, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I absolutely disagree with that because it is one of our core services. It has been from the beginning, and we were kind of held back up until the 1992 amendments to the Rehab Act and Title VII that clarified that advocacy is a service that ACIL can provide, and of course, with some federal administrations, the policy from at one point Department of Education and then at another closer to this time frame from HHS had been that we cannot engage in advocacy, but we can educate, which is the point that you've made. But really, the 92 amendments to Title VII made it clear that we can engage in advocacy and particularly to the degree that it means educating. But educating can, in and of itself, is advocacy. And some of the stuff that was in the policy that came out in, what was it, 15, 16, I guess it was 17, 18, was kind of outrageous to me, one of them being that we couldn't advocate at the local and state level. And I thought Nickel was, and perhaps April were advocating against that, but you can tell me if I'm wrong about that, because it's
my understanding,
it's
and
outrageous. And Ed Roberts, had a famous saying that when he was asked what was the most important service of a CIL, he said advocacy, 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 not necessarily in that order.
Thank you. Pam, you wanted to address this?
Yeah, I agreed with him as far as in our state, advocacy, we define that as education of consumers, the community, and we have an advocate in the State House who educates the legislators. So it's not considered lobbying, as long as you're educating.
That's my understanding too, that advocacy is one of our core services, but because we receive federal money, lobbying is not something as a SIL that we can do. And there's a difference there. Would anyone can anyone share some information on that?
Hi, I'm Andrea Champlin. I'm actually the statewide systems advocate at my ILC in New York State. So what I do is I do exactly as you were describing, right? I'll meet with legislators, I'll provide them information about some of the issues that are coming up or how certain bills might impact consumers that I work with. The difference is direct asks can be tricky, right? If you're asking like a specific thing, you can also the amount of resources that are being put into it. Like there's a dollar amount and I can't remember it off the top of my head. We're a super small organization, so it's pretty impossible for us at least to spend that amount of money, but there's a dollar amount. And as long as the manpower and the hours worked and things of that aren't going over that level, it's not considered lobbying. There's lots of good, NIAL, the New York Association of Independent Living, has some good resources on that.
Could you,
anyone's
if you would like
interested.
to put a link to that, any resources, and this is for Andrea and anyone else, this is a great place to share resources. And again, a transcript of the chat or the resources in the chat will be sent out in a week or two after this meeting. And so it's a really great place to share resources that can help each other out. Andrea, I really hope in a few weeks when we address systems advocacy that you can be on that call and give us some information as well there. I want to take this back though to individual advocacy, self-advocacy, and we can see that there's a foggy line there, right? But let's talk a little bit about consumers and in the way we can support them in advocating for themselves. Anyone? I heard a few people have some groups. You're doing some education. Let's hear some more about that.
Well, our CAT group, we teach them, like, depending upon who you're talking to, how you should address them, whether it be a commissioner for the county or whether it be your friend down the street. And we talk about politeness and things like that to get them to feel comfortable that they know. And then I like the script idea. I hadn't thought of that, where before they go and speak to someone. But just basic human politeness.
So politeness, thank you for that comment. Politeness raises a good question. What happens if politeness doesn't work? Has anybody been in that situation with individuals, and where do we go from there?
You're usually cut off. They want anything to do with you if it's like such a politician, if they're talking to them.
This is
Well,
Leland. I will say, I think speaking to what you said, Rebecca, on the other side, I've had consumers. I was actually on the phone on Zoom with her as she was speaking to a state entity, and they were extremely rude to her while she was just trying to ask a question. She was very, very polite, just saying, hey, I'm really trying to understand this process. And they were very much like, you need to just listen to what I'm saying. I don't care what your thoughts are. And I don't know how it happened, but I guess with her just continuously being like, I'm just trying to understand. I appreciate you talking to me. Then they kind of like gave in and helped her. But the fact that it took her having to really almost demean herself to this person, even though she didn't even do anything wrong and she was just asking a question, was really frustrating to me. And I applauded her for it, but I was like, I'm glad that I witnessed that, because now I can, as my position, I could say, hey, I don't know if you'd realize that your staff are treating people who are just asking a question this way for no reason. But I would love some insight on how to help my consumers not have to really lower themselves so much when it comes to people who have, the power to help them, if that makes sense, without just kowtowing to them when they're just asking for information.
Well, that's why politeness, she kept at it and kept at it and kept at it until she finally got what she did.
Mm-hmm.
That was totally unacceptable.
Yeah. So I'm not necessarily asking about, moving to impolite, but when politeness doesn't work, where do we go? As somebody mentioned, when they have somebody work on writing a plan, an additional thing they have is sort of plan B. Like, what happens when this doesn't work? Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
Beck Levin, I see your hands up, been up for a while.
This is Beck. Thanks so much, Adam. I wanted to say that I have definitely been on the receiving end of folks just kind of brushing me off, especially at government entities. I almost enjoy when they do that. And the reason I say that is because it's a very clear sign that they're underestimating me. And if they're underestimating me, they're more likely to say something that I have documented that I can then forward to their supervisor, or something along those lines. And sometimes, like, just well, first of all, creating an escalation strategy, especially for systemic change, is super, super important. But even for individual change, it's super important as well. So for when, like, you're talking to a state level entity and they're just treating you badly, taking copious notes on what they said and being like, okay, I just want to repeat, this is your name and this is what you said to me over the phone, and I want to make sure that I got that all right. And if you have their email, send it to their email, get them to confirm that everything is correct. And that's what they said, because 9 times out of 10, they're not gonna be like, well, that's not exactly what I said. And like, well, what did you exactly say? Well, I said this. Okay, well then let's do that. And the conversation changes from there. So documentation is super, super important when it comes to advocacy, I think, and it's been one of the most helpful things in my own advocacy efforts going forward. I also want to highlight that I mentioned Bold Your Advocacy as a resource for the difference between lobbying or lobbying as a subsection of advocacy. And I posted a PDF of their rules of the game for y'all's to download in the chat. It's a PDF that goes over the different ways to educate in this coming election year, rather than getting it counted as lobbying. Over.
Thank you. That was very helpful. I like having an escalation plan and documentation. I think those are really important also to self-advocacy. I see that Tyler has his hand up. Tyler, you want to go ahead? And then Don.
Yeah, I had 2 thoughts. First of all, this idea of like not being polite. Yeah, being like it always works. You always stay polite, but it doesn't mean that you can't also be polite and aggressive at the same time. Those are not mutually exclusive. And what it does is we're in a weird position because we're asking for stuff. The minute you become impolite, the minute you become aggressive in a very confrontational way, you lose everything. The minute it becomes a battle of wills, the minute you turn into the fighter, you're now seen as a problem. And maybe that's not always such a bad thing, but if you can maintain your composure and be polite and a problem at the same time, when you do have to escalate and bring it to the next person, you can say, here's all the stuff that I said. Is this right? Now you're being polite and pointing out that this other person was maybe not being polite, And the other thing is that you can do then is you can kind of play the fool a little bit. You can pretend like you don't know better. Is this right? This is what this person said to me. I just wasn't sure about it. I wanted some clarification. Because what ends up happening when you do that is you're confronting, but you're doing it in a way that doesn't feel like you're pointing a finger. And you're a lot more likely to get people to kind of listen when they don't feel like they're being attacked. I hope that made sense.
Yeah. Part of my experiences in teaching communication, and the way that we would put that idea is there's a difference between assertiveness and aggressive. And assertiveness is not being rude or impolite, but it is being direct and not necessarily following all the cues of politeness once those have been tried and worn out. Don, you've had your hand up for a while. Would you like to contribute here?
Well, for one thing, I liked exactly what Beck had to say and what Tyler had to say, and it's all gonna be how you do it personally. We all have our own way of doing these things, and if it gets to the point sometimes where you're not getting where you want to go and you're kind of being treated like we just can't wait till this person leaves, I think the question would be, do you really want me to be your adversary? Because there's so many ways you could go. Being that we are in these rural areas, we still have some small town newspapers. Do you want me to get the media involved? There's a lot of ways to escalate things to where they will be very uncomfortable. And that's just the next step. It's kind of like that escalation plan. If all else fails, then that's kind of where I'm going to go. I'm going to go to the radio, and I have my own radio show. So I can bring up issues and get them out to a large portion of northern Wisconsin and have people at least think about them.
Thanks, Don.
Very good.
Rebecca, I just want to say I thank you for everybody that joined us today. We are about 13 minutes away from the conclusion. And this has been an ILRU, the National Training and Technical Assistance Center, and the Association of Programs for Rural Independent Living, Core Conversations. And so I have put in the chat a link to a brief survey evaluation that we would love for you all to take. The link is in the chat, and it will also be at the end of the core conversation when you close out the Zoom. So I wanted to mention that.
Yeah. So we have a few comments that I would like to share that are in the chat. Brooke says persistence while remaining polite and/or professional. Maria says in Colorado, we have the client assistance program. I know we have that in Wyoming too, and I'm guessing that is in many states. And she says that's through the Disability Law of Colorado. The client assistance program helps people with disabilities that are seeking or receiving services from a project, program, or facility funded by the Rehabilitation Act. And it's an independent advocacy program designed to help people. And it will help them maybe anywhere from answering questions, giving people some information about their rights, putting them in connection with other services or places they can go, and will come in and advocate with them if need be. That's how it works in Wyoming anyway. And somebody else said legal aid, disability rights, and that's in Ohio. So directing people to resources is a good way to do that. A piece of advice that we used to give people in the SIL in Wyoming was that when a conversation gets to that point, to say, to let them know, I'm not happy with your answer. Who is the next person I can go to? Like, who is it that I go to if I'm not happy with this outcome? And put them in the place of telling you. And it both lets them know that you are going to go there, but also puts them in the position of having to share where that is. Beck added, reflecting back what the person said to them to let them know you're documenting it makes them reflect on what they really, really said. Leland added, I've also noticed that when you ask for names, people start to get really hesitant to give it. I want to take a moment. There's been something that's been in the chat for a while, but as this conversation has been going in this direction, I didn't want to slow that down. But Guillermo says, here in El Paso, Texas, we're along the border of Texas and Mexico. One of the advocacy barriers we face are language barriers. I'm wondering if anybody has also faced that, or if they have any advice from Guillermo, or if Guillermo would like to share more about that experience. Oh, I think your mute is on. Hold on just a second. Guillermo, we can't hear you. It wasn't muted. We're still having trouble hearing you, Guillermo. If you would like to share something in the chat, I will be glad to read it.
Maya Dean says, we often experience this barrier. I have started to learn Spanish on my own. That's a good way to take control of that.
Oh, someone has their hand raised. While we're waiting for Guillermo, we'll go ahead and go to Beck.
This is Beck. What I think I would say to Guillermo is, I have had both communication barriers in spoken language. So we're in Southern California, so most often it's Spanish. And then also in American Sign Language, especially when folks think that writing a note and sliding it all over to a person who is deaf is access, when it is clearly not. Oh, fun fact also, for folks who, I hope folks know this, but folks who are deaf or otherwise signing ASL have a lower level of literacy and comprehension, unfortunately, than folks who are hearing. So when you write a note to someone, and slide it over to them, that doesn't guarantee that that person reads English. ASL is a different language. Fun little fact. But the way that we combat that is simply by ensuring that in key conversations with officials that there are translators, just including them on that meeting is super important. I also wrote a letter to Commissioner Martin O'Malley of the Social Security Administration recently about deaf Social Security beneficiaries. And doing that, it wasn't a short process because I was working directly with one of my colleagues who signs ASL. And we had a lot of back and forth and a lot of editing, but the end result was a letter that he was really proud of, and that that we were all really proud of and agreed with, and adequately represented the needs of that he was seeing. So, I mean, I guess I don't think this is a very satisfactory answer, but I would say that there is no real substitute for access, and having a translator either for spoken or signed language is vital to adequate advocacy efforts. Over.
Thank you, Beck. Guillermo did add in the chat, he said sometimes it's not just language, but also culturally difficult for people to advocate for themselves, and they need to learn to request a translator, and they have a right to do so. Again, we need to educate the consumers as to their rights. And I think that goes back to the very first comment we had in this, was also when we teach them to self-advocate, we help them with their confidence and ability to do so, not just in one particular venue, but confidence and the ability or the tools to do that across venues and situations. This reluctance that Guillermo brings up with Spanish speakers, has anyone else seen this culturally or with underserved populations, the cultural differences and how that can affect not only openness to self-advocating, but the way that they are received, whether this be someone who speaks another language or somebody who is deaf. You know, even if they get the same skills that we're teaching other people, and even if they get the confidence to do this, how does the affect the issue that they're advocating with, or the people? Anyone?
I don't know if you can hear me now.
Yes,
Yeah,
we can.
hear you.
Okay. And part of that is cultural, that I'm not educated and the person I'm talking to is educated. And so they should know more than I do. And that's where a lot of our consumers face, unfortunately. And so that's part of what we need to educate them, that they do have the rights and they can speak up. And that's why I talk about culturally the language barriers, all those come into play. And sometimes we may feel that, well, I want to advocate for that person because they don't know or they can't. But we also need to look at our roles as educators and let them understand that they do have rights, right? That they are educated enough to ask and pursue whatever their needs are.
I think that was really well said, to recognize our role in that. If we want that to carry across their lives, it's more important that we educate someone to self-advocate than step in and advocate for them. I know in Wyoming, very, very rural, and a lot of times in small towns, people believe if their doctor said they have to go to the nursing home, or they have to stay in the nursing home, or they have to do this instead of that, they feel that they literally cannot argue with the doctor. And so it takes a lot of education for us to say, and nursing homes don't like it, but we go into nursing homes and say, you know, you have control over your plan to leave, but sometimes that can bring up Medicare issues. And so, but just letting people know that one piece of information your doctor doesn't get to decide has been huge for us in those situations. We are going to have to wrap this up. And before we do, I'm going to share my screen again to give you some contact information. I want to remind you also that we will be sharing a transcript of this, the resources that have shown up in chat. We really appreciate that you are coming. And let me just get us here to some, sorry, just 1 minute. Got my chat up in front of there. Okay, so you can contact me. I'm Rebecca Roberts. I'm the Director of Training and Technical Assistance at April. Adam has been very helpful in facilitating this meeting. Your feedback is really important to us. You will have that opportunity for a survey at the end of this. That is posted in the chat, and we would really appreciate if you do that. Let me here. I also need to make sure that I share the attribution for ILNet. Oops, I'm not doing this well. This chat is supported by ILNet, and they are supported by just one second. I'm having a hard time with that. But the ideas that we've heard in this chat don't necessarily represent the Administration for Community Living. But we are grateful that they provide the support for us to participate in this. Does anyone have anything to share? If you have resources or questions, please put them in the chat. Ideas, because all of this will be shared with everybody after the conclusion of this. All right, well, I want to thank everybody for participating. Again, if you have, I see we do have more messages in chat. Let's take a look here. People are posting some resources. That's going to be great. And Beck says, Beck's a great resource for this. Also regarding doctors, brush up to the changes to 504. They help in that regard. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I really hope that you will join us in a few weeks for the systems advocacy talk that we're going to have, because I think that there's really need for that as well. Thank you.
Thank you all. See you next time.